Good morning, everybody. This week we've seen something very new: exploding pages and exploding walkie talkies going off in southern Lebanon and the capital of Lebanon, Beirut. And a lot of people are asking, what on earth is going on here? This looks like something out of a James Bond movie. Well, of course, Hezbollah and the state that calls itself Israel have been in conflict for a very, very long time. And tensions between these two entities are increasing and accelerating at the moment. And this is just another acceleration in the conflict, or you could say war, between the state of Israel and Hezbollah there. So this is an act of war. Well, what exactly happened? And we need to look into this because a lot of people are really, really concerned that this is not just something that is going to be confined to southern Lebanon, but it's something that could happen anywhere in the world. So we first heard about this on Wednesday when about 3,000 pages, which had been acquired and purchased by Hezbollah, exploded simultaneously all over southern Lebanon in a very wide area. Now, these pages are out of manufacture. They're made by a Taiwanese company called Gold Apollo. The model is the AR-924 pager. And Hezbollah decided they were going to give up using mobile phones to communicate with each other because they could be hacked and surveilled, and go back to old technology, which actually surprisingly is more secure because it can't be surveilled easily by people who have all these back doors into smartphones and apps that we use today. Pages were secure methods of communication, but not secure from exploding, it seems. So the question has been asked, and we still don't have a definitive answer, is how did this happen? Was it some signal or pulse that caused the lithium-ion batteries to overload? That was my initial thought. And there was also the initial thoughts of almost everybody. Or was it an explosive which has been planted inside this particular batch of pages, 3,000 or so, that then got into the hands of Hezbollah because someone really didn't do their due diligence, to say the least, and purchased these pages from a supply chain where the Mossad in Israel, the Israeli security services forces, had been able to intercept them and plant explosives in these particular individual pages, these 3,000 pages that then got to Hezbollah. How on earth could this happen? And people were looking at this Taiwanese company. It seems that they had absolutely nothing to do with it because they stopped manufacturing them a long time ago. Then the finger pointed at this Hungarian company called BAC that seemed to be involved in supplying them to the Middle East. But then we find out that this is just a shell company for something else. It's a front for something else. And what's behind it seems to be very opaque and murky, and not many people can find out exactly what is going on here. So the question is then, which one of these things was it? Because if it was a pulse that caused the batteries to overload, and this is what happened to the pages, couldn't this happen to any electronic device? And there are billions of electronic devices around the world. The majority of the world's people now have an electronic device with a lithium-ion battery of one kind or another, whether it's a smartphone or a laptop, or then there are these electric vehicles which have much, much larger batteries, and we see what happens when they catch fire. But that wasn't all, because obviously on Wednesday we know that 2,800 people were wounded. This is the figure that seems to be, being settled on now, which is a horrendous number of people with injuries. And 25 people approximately died. And not just Hezbollah fighters, but there was an 8-year-old girl, an 11-year-old boy who were picking up the pages to hand to their parents. And, they got blown up, essentially. Children have been killed. Is collateral damage here, but whatever. It's horrendous because people have lost eyes, the faces have been blown off and disfigured, they've lost hands, they've lost fingers, they've got groin injuries. And the thing I do find very disturbing is that some people that I actually know are celebrating this and laughing about it. They're laughing about people having groin injuries. I think that's despicable because, I'm not celebrating people getting injured and people getting killed. Yes, these two entities are at war with each other, so they're actively trying to harm each other. But you got an 8-year-old girl, for goodness sake, whose face has been blown off and then she died. How sick are you to laugh at that? I think that's sick, to be honest. So, and it's disturbing that the people that I know, actually, who are on the right of politics, and I would agree with them on a lot of things, but I don't agree with them on the Middle East at all. And they will stand behind this entity called Israel that calls itself the State of Israel, formed in 1948, and will back it, whatever it does. I don't think like that. I just want people, wherever they are, to be able to get on and go about their business and bring up their families without being blown to bits. Really. I mean, there's war there, of course. We can say there's different opinions about that, but really, this is a horrendous attack for the people who've been caught up in it, and particularly the innocent people that have been caught up with this and have found that they've got horrendous injuries or have been killed as well. But it didn't just stop on Wednesday, because the next day, the Thursday, there was another attack with exploding walkie-talkies. And here it was fewer, but there are still estimated to be 20 people who died and another 450 wounded by exploding walkie-talkies. So you've either got another EMP pulse of some kind that set these things off, or you've got another supply chain which is intercepted by the Mossad or some Israeli security service branch, and then put explosives into a few hundred walkie-talkies and then triggered them to go off simultaneously on the Thursday afternoon. And one of them went off in the funeral for someone who'd been killed on Wednesday. Going off in a crowded place, which is going to injure many, many people, not just the people in Hezbollah that they're targeting. So this is, if any other country had done this, apart from the state that calls itself Israel, if it were Russia or if it were North Korea or if it were Iran, the Western media would immediately be condemning this as a terrorist attack. But because they stand behind Israel, this is the mantra that comes out from the Western mainstream media, they're not calling it a terrorist attack. And as I said, some people very sickly, that's not a real word, but deplorably, some people are laughing about this and celebrating it. I mean, really, dreadful. But on Thursday, the attack was through a device called the ICV-82, manufactured by a Japanese company called ICOM. But of course, again, it's out of manufacture now. It's the date that they stopped manufacturing these things was over 10 years ago. So it's nothing to do with the original company that manufactured them. These were second-hand devices that were somehow being purchased in a bulk load and had been intercepted and then ended up in the hands of Hezbollah operatives. But, it's going to take an awful lot of planning and management and strategizing to get explosives into these specific devices that then Hezbollah decided to purchase. It's almost beyond belief. And, this must have been in the planning for months or years, probably years. But as yet, the worrying thing is no one has any answers. And people still can't agree on whether it was explosives, it's most likely to be that, or whether it was some kind of pulse, a signal that set them off. Because on Thursday, as well as the walkie-talkies exploding, there were also reports of solar panels, electric vehicles, iPhones in phone stores also exploding at the same time. I don't know. I mean, there's no confirmation of this, but if that were the case, then it would have been some kind of signal. But my feeling is it probably wasn't. The one that the explosion that we saw in a phone shop probably was one of these walkie-talkies that was there that hadn't been sold. But then that means, well, this is essentially an act of terror because you put an explosive in a walkie-talkie that's in a phone shop. It could have blown off, anybody's hands or face or head, not just someone who is a member of Hezbollah. They could have just gone into the shop, bought it, and be walking around. It could have been a kid, another child, who could have, ended up with their hands or their groin or their face blown off. And it's not funny at all. So people are very concerned, even where I am, even in the West, people are concerned because if this can happen in Lebanon, it could happen anywhere. So the people who are laughing and joking about this and, and ignoring the fact that some kids have got their faces blown off, it could happen to you because someone could decide, one day, they don't like you and they don't like your views on this or that or the other, on migration, for example, and then just put a signal that is targeted to your phone, your device, and blow your hand off. This is a concern that everybody has now because we don't know exactly what happened. And whether it was a pulse, I doubt it was, or whether it was some explosives which had been there to booby trap and jerry-rig these devices. What other devices have been implanted with explosives? It could be any device, anywhere. If this can happen to so many thousand devices that are out of manufacture and, out of manufacture for 10, 13 years, I mean, couldn't that happen to any other device in any other country? So this is a concern now for everybody, not just people who have items which have got lithium-ion batteries. I try to keep those to a minimum. I've got a smartphone, I've got a laptop, obviously. I mean, I don't have an electric vehicle. I've got an old car from the last millennium because I don't want something which has got which can be turned off remotely by the government if they want to do that, which can happen by with these new cars which have got kill switches. But the worry with electric vehicles is now, could someone remotely just detonate it? You've seen the horrendous fires that occur when an electric vehicle battery goes wrong and catches fire. You've seen this with some regularity on buses, public transport buses in London and Stockholm and other places. They just catch fire and then you have to run for your life if you're on a bus with an electric vehicle battery fire. And these are terrible. We had a whole car park at Luton Airport burned down because one electric vehicle caught fire, and the fire is so bad it couldn't be put out. It spread, and 1,000 or so people lost their vehicles. Fortunately, no one was injured because the car park was evacuated, but they can cause horrendous damage. And if someone is there trapped in a vehicle when this happens, you're a goner. So people are concerned that this might happen. So we need answers, and we need answers very, very quickly. But this operation is, astonishing, and it's very opaque. But we need to know, because we all need to know that we are safe. And this is obviously targeted at the other side in a conflict between two entities that are killing each other. But we need to know that this isn't going to happen to ordinary people anywhere in the world. So we need to think about this and keep asking questions. And I hope that you all are safe and nothing like this happens to you or anybody. Thanks for listening, everybody, and God bless you all.